want? What would they like to see? So this is our guess, and now we get to talk to you and figure out what's really the best. So the timeline obviously has changed, and I think we all have the updated timeline. Um, but there are 3 webinars and 2 face-to-face meetings. So there's webinar training. And in this project, how I was thinking about the webinars was they're kind of self-contained nuggets as opposed to being part of the process and debriefing the projects and stuff like that, except for the last one, which will be like responding to the activities they've been doing throughout the process. But the first one would be on contextualization, and the second one would be on digital literacy, and not necessarily by people who are actually in the training or doing the training, but we can. That's certainly open to discussion. Okay, so I'm going to go. Whoops! Oh, I have to turn the page. So the first day we focused on standards and contextualization, which is one of the things in the RFP. I do have questions about it though, because I think we said last time that most of the people in this training will probably be people who have been through the Coach Standards training project and maybe Standards 2.0 as well. So I'm not sure how much we really are going to end up focusing on this. But so we started out with a focus on standards and why we need content standards and what the function of them is, and then an activity with unpacking a standard and relating that to lesson planning. And then in the afternoon, contextualization, which is basically taking Standards 2.0 and using them to inform lesson activities and lesson planning. Oh, I keep forgetting I have to turn the page. Wait a second. And then practice with contextualization, actually reading some scenarios, and maybe the assignment would be actually doing it and implementing it and giving some, posting in the COP some feedback, in the portal some feedback about how it went. So are there questions, or do we want to talk about this, or should I keep going and then we'll come back?
Well, how will you keep going? Just go through the...
I would just talk about day 2, and then we can come back and talk about the whole thing, or we can talk about this one now.
Yeah, can we talk about it now?
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to be very blunt here, because I really don't see where the leadership component of this training is. And it looks like it really looks almost the same as what we did for 2.0 and for the regular the regular standards training.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're hoping to do is to kind of like we're doing. Well, you may not be aware, we have another training going on for ESL teachers where we were hoping to identify really strong teachers in Texas who would be able to develop leadership skills so that they could go back and kind of impact the teams at the local level. Because we have a lot of problems in Texas, that I can attest to. I just was on a site visit yesterday and observed some classes, and I just felt like while it was a good class, the teacher really hasn't changed much in 10 years, of her teaching. There was no technology integration. There was very kind of old-fashioned methods that she was using, and I think we have a lot of that. And if we had really keyed-in teachers that were, very aware of the standards, very well of the tech integration pieces, knew how to contextualize, and then could use those elements to provide counsel to the teachers in the program. Because what is here is what these teachers are getting now.
Great. Yeah.
So I don't want to be a Debbie
No,
Downer on
that's
that,
good.
but I
No,
think we can do better.
right. That's why we're having this conversation. So that's good, John. Thanks. So, and just thinking about that, you want these teachers to really be coaching the teachers in the programs to improve instruction and have better learning outcomes. I wonder if, well, one possibility that comes to mind is the adult ed teacher competencies that came out from Octave a couple of years ago as a focus of like what does good adult education teaching look like? And there's 4 components to that. The first one is focused on data and using data and assessment. The second one is kind of what you're talking about, really instructional strategies and using effective strategies for teaching adults. The third one is about communication and just being able to communicate with people from all different backgrounds and supporting diversity. And the fourth one is about professional development. So I don't know if you have something like that already that you would want us to base it on, but that's an existing possibility.
Yeah, I think that's a good start. We've had other projects. In fact, the old LEA, had some kind of action research piece in the beginning, where they looked at their own programs, identified gaps, and kind of saw areas that needed improvement. So that seems like learning how to do that would be one way. But I think the only way to really do it is, for these teachers to, actually do it at their, within their own programs, rather than just get the philosophy and say this is what action research is. So that's made me think that maybe if we had them do that and then have them develop some kind of project where, my thought, just in my own experience, I learned the most when I have to do something I've never done before. And, if we could maybe pick a team of people who are already good teachers and then ask them to develop a class, a project that is completely different from the way they've been teaching up till now, but would address the weaknesses that their program has. So, that could be something like a teacher coming in and doing an all-distance class, where everything is taught at a distance, including the direct and the proxy hours, or maybe somebody, if they've never done it before, gone into a business or an industry and created a specialized curriculum and class and taught it. So, and my thought is that by doing that, they would, they would gain the kind of empathy that other teachers would have, when they have to learn, when they have to change and move away from the way they've always done it to implementing new things and ideas. And then those teachers could be, the goal then would be for those teachers to be able to lead, as an example, to use what they learn to help counsel and support the teachers in their program, and then also teachers outside their program. They could be trainers for trained PPs. So it's sort of like, let's turn everybody into Denise Guckers.
I'm trying to visualize how, to actually take on something completely new and do it. We don't have, they're going to meet once in the spring and once in the beginning of fall. I'm not sure that,
Can I interject?
Yes.
This
yes.
is Judy. So if I'm looking at just the idea that John gave us already, like in meeting with industry sector leaders or employers and things like that, I feel like that's something they could, if that was their goal, if that's the gap that they're trying to fill, that's something they could do in between those two sessions is go and meet with industry leaders and find out what kind of skills the students need to be in that particular industry. I think that that's something that's reasonable. Now, being able to take that and actually start applying that into the classroom, I agree that's kind of a short time frame to do that, but they can start moving the ball forward, in my opinion.
Well, Lori, is there any way we can move that timeline back? She's on mute. She's trying to answer.
Sorry. Yeah, I spoke with finance this morning, and it doesn't seem. I mean, it would take a little bit of work on finance end, but it looks like we can go through December.
So that would give us enough time for them to do some research and then maybe do a 4-week or an 8-week course, which they would actually, develop and then teach, and then some time left over to bring it home.
Well, and Marion, this is Beth. In
Yeah.
some ways, this lines up with kind of what we got to when we kind of started digging in on the administrator side was, thinking about them looking at their own data and is there, something that they want to address in their program between the two meetings. And, we've got the self-assessment that we were going to, so some way to, for the administrators and the instructors both to be addressing, identifying gaps, and then some tools from us to address those gaps. The other thing that we had talked about was the POP report, which is, we
Mhm.
were talking about data. And Lori did send me a redacted POP report, but I couldn't get it open. So
Okay.
she and I will work that out so I can get that to you. But Wayne on our team has already been working on Teams is our data management system for our statewide
Mhm.
data management system for those that don't know. A training that we have we call Teams for Teachers, and he's already started working on breaking down the POP report, looking at it from an instructional side and what is in that report that an instructor could take and use.
Mhm.
So we've already got somebody who's working on, from an instructor perspective, how do I break down that new report? So that might be
That's
helpful
good.
to us.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I'm being quiet because it does seem really ambitious to me to create a new course and teach it in the course of this. I mean, that's a lot of hours for somebody to for a project for something like this. But if you guys think that that the teachers will be able to do this and that they'll be working over the summer and that they'll be able to implement something new in the fall, that's fine.
Well, we're looking for hot shots.
Well,
Okay.
do you think they can do does it have to be an entire class, or can it be a smaller scale implement of change?
Yeah, well, how much would be necessary to learn it? It could be like a 4-week class, I suppose. We could ask them to implement. That would be enough to bring a group together and maybe organize for a 6-week. No, but I was thinking that you could have different teachers selecting different, wholly different kinds of classes. And the criteria would have to be new to them because we want them to figure out uh, how to do things different. And
Uh,
then they could support each other in cohorts, and then they could get some feedback from you guys.
Okay. I Let me just throw out another idea. We're just brainstorming right now,
Okay.
um, and that is um, the approach of lesson study. And we're lucky to have Jacques Lacour on this project, who's an expert in lesson study. But it's, and I don't know how familiar you are with it, but it's an effective approach to professional development, but it's intensive, and it involves, teachers working together, doing research on a lesson that students are having trouble mastering, and going through a whole process of developing a lesson together. One teacher teaches it, and the others in the group observe, and then they debrief together and they revise, and they Jacques can probably talk about this better than me, but a lot of the benefit is not just that they have that one lesson that's taught better, but that the process of working together and really focusing on the lesson, and focusing on not on what the teacher's doing, but how are the students responding and are the students learning it, is a pretty productive learning process. So it's a lot to take on, though, but it's something that they could do in their program with their teachers, providing leadership, and really focusing on the teaching that's going on in their program.
So what would the leadership be then? So they would lead this group.
They would be well, part of the training would be learning what the process is and what's involved. It's involved. There's 4 stages to it, and they all take time, and it's kind of it's intense. Like, the program would have to make a commitment to it also, because the teachers would have to have some time to meet together and work on it. But the leadership part of it would be learning the process of leading that, and the result would be improved instruction in the program.
So it would be several teachers then from the same program would be, okay.
Well, so the teachers that are participating in the academy would be kind of the point people leading that, and that they would be working with and mentoring other teachers in their program, which is, I think, what you're looking for, right?
Yeah. Okay.
If I can add a little bit to that.
Yes, why don't you?
I think one of the great features of lesson study is how accommodating it is in terms of dealing with other initiatives or priorities at the same time of conducting the process of lesson study. So if it were a matter of implementing or addressing certain standards or curricula, that could be done through lesson study. If it were a matter of focusing on contextualization and actually implementing it at the classroom level, that could be done through lesson study as well. The process just lends itself to a variety of priority areas, and its flexibility is the beauty of the process. In addition to the long-term instructional skill building that is a result of the process. So it's got multiple benefits and outcomes.
So just food for thought. That's different than what you were thinking.
No, but I can learn more about that.
It's the thing that I like about it is that it focuses our participants on the teachers in their program, which is, I think, where you want to go. And whereas, teaching a new course, yeah, it'll definitely be a learning experience and develop some empathy, but how are they going to bring that back to their program and make the changes that you want to see in their program? So maybe focusing on kind of, and you're right. This is what we did. It was the first content standards training was focusing on the coaching aspect of it, but so this is bringing another dimension to that. Is um, a process where people work on that collectively. And I don't really know how, like I know that a lot of people did meet with their teachers and observe their teachers and give feedback and coach, but I'm not sure how in depth that process really became. So this would be a way to deepen that and to give people an idea of um, how to do that. What's really involved in really looking at a lesson. It's kind of looking, and Jacques, you can correct me if I'm off the wall, but I see it as looking at a lesson from the student point of view, like not did I do that jigsaw reading, did I follow all the steps and do it right, but did the students really learn something, and were they able to communicate their piece of the jigsaw to the other people in their group, and so they learned and taught each other, and just really looking at the student outcomes, which is where we want the focus to be, I think.
Yeah, one of the critical elements of lesson study is anticipating what students' responses will be to the major task, the major student task of the lesson. And that's what elevates the above standard lesson planning, which, as Marian just said, focuses more on instruction, typically and historically. Lesson study is all about predicting how students think and learn in order to adjust instruction to ensure that the thinking and learning is aligned with the intended objective of the lesson. I just pasted a link for anyone who might want to look into it a little bit more and give it some more thought. And it's actually a Texas lesson study project. I don't know if we eventually decided to go in the lesson study direction, if those resources might be accessible and helpful to pull it off. So, but in any case, it's a really good introduction to lesson study, I think.
Okay, so the process would be to learn about this approach, and then the participants would go back and do it. Try it out in the class, and then they would do some kind of report out afterwards. Is that what you're thinking, or reflection afterwards?
Yeah, well, try it out in the class means work with a group of teachers, so they have to have 2 or 3 other teachers that work on it with them, and that's
so
the piece.
All of that whole group would be they'd be training participants, then, not just
no, just the leader would be. I mean, I don't think we're going to have 4 people from each program, are we? I mean, if we did, that would be awesome. But what I'm imagining is that one person from each program is going to go back and find some colleagues that are also open and ready to do something new, and do a project with them. A classroom,
Marian?
Yes.
You realize how many programs we have? If we set 4 from each program, that puts you at about 160 people.
Yeah, so
we don't want that.
That's why I think we'll just have the one person who's the hot shot, the outstanding teacher from that program. But what we want is that person's enthusiasm and knowledge and commitment to be communicated to all the other teachers in that program. So I'm just trying to think of a way to facilitate that.
Well, we could use small groups. We had a project here in Texas about 10 or 15 years ago now, called Project IDEA, and that's sort of where my idea comes from, I guess. But the people had a project that they developed, and after they wrote their proposal for the project, then they worked with 2 or 3 other people in the group who had a similar nature to the project. So one might be in the domain of math, and one might be in IETs or something. But they had some similarities, and so throughout the project, they met on a regular basis and shared what they were doing with each other, in addition to what they were doing at home, with their classes. And the people that participated in that said that was really helpful to, like, number one, they were very pleased to be selected to participate in the project, because you're recognizing up front that you're a good teacher. And then 2, they learned from the other good teachers in the other one, and then they were able to show the local program how it worked. So it was something that impacted, beyond just the teacher.
So they initiated a project in their program, but it could be anything, whatever they determined, and that would maybe be partly related to looking at their POP report or their data.
Right, or whatever research they're doing. It could be research outside teams too. So like we have lots of what we see. Of course, we're bureaucrats. We look at data all the time, and we see lots of holes, but they don't always see the holes in where their program's not serving everyone. So, but I don't dislike the idea of the lesson study. That kind of narrows it down to a much smaller, more focused kind of activity.
Yeah, and I just worry if they're creating a course and teaching it, that's all their energy is going to go to that, and it's going to be a good experience, and they're going to learn a lot, but then it's going to be over, and what are they going to do with that? So I want to see them do something with their teachers. While they, like you said, they're going to be in a cohort and meet with their colleagues in the academy that are doing similar things and support each other. So I like that idea. I wonder, sorry.
This is Jacques. I think the POP data would still have a critical role in a lesson study initiative if we go that route, because one of the early parts of the process is to find areas that are challenging for students to learn and for teachers to teach, and that helps narrow down the focus of a particular research lesson that gets developed. So there's room in lesson study to just add a lot of the usual suspect kinds of components that you expect to address in a professional learning initiative.
Right. So it could be a fairly robust kind of lesson. It doesn't, wouldn't be something you do in a couple of days. It could be something over time that included a lot of, different kind of elements, like.
Jacques.
Yes, it requires looking at curriculum, standards, instructional materials, current classroom practices, research and best practices, research on how students learn. There's quite a bit of preparatory study involved before you're cut loose to actually develop the research lesson. So there's a ton of learning that occurs in the study phase, and then in the planning phase, things are thought out collaboratively to a much more in-depth kind of level than you ordinarily see in any individual teacher's lesson plan. And there's a very conscious effort to, again, identify how students are going to react to just about every prompt, and in particular to whatever the priority task is in the lesson. And observers during the presentation of the lesson are looking very specifically for the presence or absence of that anticipated student, evidence of student thinking and student learning. And then in a debriefing, there's the opportunity to review the steps of the lesson and determine what worked and what didn't in terms of getting the student thinking and student learning that was expected. Sometimes the lesson is revised and retaught so that the teacher's research into what works and what doesn't work can be confirmed, it's a continuous improvement process that's built into the lesson study process. So again, just it's hard to describe it briefly. I think I just explained the basics of the steps, but each one is really critical, and in each step a ton of learning occurs for the instructors. And I think these instructors who'd be going through the training would be developing very high quality facilitation skills. They would be finding out where to go for the best research to impact practice. They'd be doing a little bit of coaching and collaborative, building expertise in collaboration with their fellow teachers. And, in the end, typically there's some kind of sharing of the lessons learned from the project, whether it's within the department or school. Sometimes it takes the form of a publication or a presentation at a workshop at a conference, something like that. So it's really quite a total package, and it follows all of the principles of effective professional learning and has all the evidence-based characteristics of it. It's pretty simple on the surface, but it can get complex as you go through the process, and that's where the learning takes place.
Okay. Where do they learn how to manage the other teachers? Where does the leadership piece come in?
That would come in. Well, I would assume that the teachers going through the academy would be the lead facilitators of the lesson study teams. So they would be learning sort of a combination of facilitation skills, and in particular, how to use certain protocols for different steps of lesson study in order to focus conversations, blend the best ideas that surface from a collaborative team into a coherent plan. And they would also be responsible for just the logistics of the whole thing, bringing people together, calendaring meetings and the presentations of the research lesson, being responsible for recording and memorializing the activities and the meetings and the work of the teams, and putting it together in sort of an end product that shows accountability for everything that's taken place in any particular lesson study cycle.
I just wanted to ask Olga, because you said you were in that project that John was referring to. Does this sound similar to that?
Not exactly.
Not exactly.
The project today was more of a you implement a project in your class, you reflect on it. It was about being a more reflective teacher and incorporating something into the classroom that was going to help with student retention. So I mean, that was mine. Other people had different projects. So it could be whatever the instructor decides.
Okay, so thanks. So this is like implementing a project. The similarity is implementing a project in the classroom, and one of the differences is and the being reflective, which I think is a great idea. The difference is that it's collaborative, so it's not just the individual teacher doing the project and reflecting with colleagues in Project IDEA, but reflecting with the teachers that they're teaching with. So I wanted to, so I was thinking, John, as you were saying, you and Lori look at data, a lot of data, and see a lot of holes. I wondered, and I'm just asking this from sort of a management perspective, what if there were like 3 or 4 areas or topics or I'm not sure what focuses that we picked out based on looking at the statewide data that we encourage people to focus on. Or Jacques, maybe that undermines the whole lesson study process, but I'm just thinking if everybody's doing something, we have 24 people doing 24 totally different projects, how are we going to be able to support them in a way that's meaningful and useful?
No, Marian, I think your idea is really good, because if the POP the POP data reveals that there are several specific areas of student learning challenges in different content areas, I think it would be totally fine to ask participants to choose from a subset of potential topic areas that are challenge areas for students, because it seems that there would be a natural connection or alignment between what the statewide data says and what teachers at individual schools actually encounter and experience for themselves. So I don't think it would be taking away the flexibility. Yeah, I don't think it would be too restrictive. I think if they had a subset to choose from, that would work just fine.
I agree with that. I think it would be really difficult to manage if everybody, some people got very specific on what their focus was and some were very generic, and you were trying to manage 24 topics would be incredibly difficult. So I think that would be a good idea, and there aren't that many things to choose from, really. Wouldn't you agree, John, as far as topics to focus on improving?
Well, I could think of a lot of them. You could organize it by domain and group your math and language and ESL teachers, in different cohorts, or you could focus it on a lesson from a level. We have one of our big holes in Texas is we don't have very many advanced level students. We're trying to encourage programs to recruit more because they're those are the ones who are most likely to benefit from training that we're trying to provide as well. And but a lot of teachers don't know how to teach advanced level students or prepare lessons that are challenging for them. Or it could be in addition, technology, is always a problem for us. So we could ask them to develop a technology-based lesson.
Yeah, but I mean that could be one of the topics that they choose from for enhancement.
Right. But I'm just saying I can think of lots of different ways to approach it. So I think we could come up with some topics that they could choose from.
I like your idea.
Thank you, Olga.
Olga.
Finally.
Okay. This is Beth, and I'm having members of my team private message me, so I want them to speak up. You're on this team because we need your expertise. So, Olga, can you elaborate on what idea? Because John has lots of ideas, and he has lots of good ideas. Which idea that you like, and elaborate a little bit.
I guess more of having the teachers do the specific teachers that are selected, having them do some kind of project or something in the classroom, or maybe it could be based on their data. But if we pick, John, you mentioned the aspect of how y'all are doing this with the ESAL. So if we pick those instructors that are, what did you call them? Help me out, John. Anyway,
textile instructors, you mean?
The what?
The ones that are doing the textile training?
Well, you said that we would pick instructors for this program. We would pick those instructors that are
go-getters.
Yeah.
Right.
Cream of the crop or something.
Right.
Based on their classroom data. So we would be working with individuals that already are doing something right in their classroom. Because I read an article, I don't know if it was like early this morning, that about 21st century schools and how we need to change our classrooms and our teaching. So we want to be able to have these teachers go through something that's going to make them make a difference, and then be able to take this to other instructors in the programs. Because one of the things with our instructors is not everybody is a K through 12. They don't have education. You can have a bachelor's degree in anything and be an instructor. So my concern is that we need to take them through a process to where they understand in terms of making their classroom a 21st century classroom, in terms of integrating the technology and things like that, and then being able to help the other instructors in their program do the same. That's all I have to say.
Oh, well, that's sort of what I'm after too, Olga.
Yeah, that sounds good though. I like the ideas.
So rather
but
than
if we could somehow prevent the way teachers are siloed a lot of times, like in the classes that I observed just a couple of days ago, I saw one really excellent teacher, one really poor teacher, and one sort of average. And I'm thinking, well, it would be great, even though they weren't teaching the same thing, but it would be somehow great if that strong teacher could support the others, in some ways, So this is what I'm thinking would be good here. Somehow, provide an activity where they would have to talk and share and learn from each other.
Robin, did you have anything you wanted to add? I know Robin went through has her CMPI, so she's been through the old LEA.
Olga did a great job of articulating what she and I have been texting about. I really like the idea of hands-on, and I do like the mentorship component that John was just mentioning about that the stronger teacher then would take a teacher who may need to modify or polish her skills or hone her skills a little bit or his skills a little bit differently. And I do like that idea. I like that direction. And I think that, if I were going through the program, I would get more out of the hands-on and having to create something I've never done before. And like John mentioned early on, you don't really learn something till you have to do it and implement it. And so that's why I'm circling back around to what his idea was at the beginning. So,
but do you guys feel like it needs to be just a complete, this is what I was trying to get to, a completely different course that they've never taught before, or can there be some aspect of their classroom that they're changing?
Okay, well, for me, I'm hearing what Miriam is talking about, how that we don't really have the time to develop something very extensive. So perhaps we could compromise and do an element of your classroom that you've never done before, like integrate technology or at a distance or flip classroom or something, that you've never done before, just to kind of push yourself outside your comfort zone and where the learning actually does take place. That's my opinion. I haven't spoken with Olga or anyone else about that, so I would like to hear what everyone else has to say too.
Yeah, I think we could move it from focus on a course to focus on a lesson, as long as the lesson is a robust lesson, not just a short kind of thing.
Here's another thought, as long as we're just throwing out thoughts, is because one thought I've had about this is like, are we going to make this really wide and try to cover a lot of things, or are we going to really focus in on something and try to really make a difference in one area? So you mentioned technology in 21st century classrooms and distance and blended, and we could pick a focus for the whole program, the whole academy, and say, this is going to be about technology integration. And there's going to be a lot of different aspects, and there's a lot of different possibilities of what your project could be. And maybe the first part is you come to the first training, and then you do your project in your classroom, whatever you pick to do. And then in the second part is going to be about how can you generalize that for the other teachers in your program? How can other people use that? If they can't do exactly what you're doing, how can they adapt it in a way that's going to work for them and be related to the standards and what students need to be able to do when they go on to wherever they're going to go on to, where pretty much everything is done online. Does that sound too narrow, or what do you think about narrowing it to a specific topic? It doesn't have to be technology, but maybe really zoning in on something. I mean, it could be.
Well, you could set up some criteria, like the lesson has to align to standards, the lesson has to incorporate technology, the lesson has to contextualize in some way, kind of hit the basis of what we've been doing in the other trainings, but but make it, the focus would be on the particular lesson that they select to develop.
This is Olga. I think, and I put a comment in the chat pod, but I think that we need to have them do something different, because our students keep coming to our classes and they're seeing what they saw in K through 12, and it could be that something that they, whatever they encounter in our classes is the same, and they're not staying because it's the same old. So we need to push for more, if I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah. Well, I think too, what I've been noticing lately is just a lot of complacency. This is the advantage of being in the field a long time, but I look at what I would have called a fairly good lesson 10 or 15 years ago doesn't seem so good now. And, and I think that one of the problems is just inertia, and teachers just year after year keep teaching in the same way.
And so that's one of the reasons why I thought, well, maybe we can do something they never did before. You know.
Well, I like the idea of at least incorporating something that you've never done before. You know, and going back to thinking about the data and are there topics that we could pull that seem to, looking at the statewide data that seem to be across programs, it's even possible that we have, so let's say we've identified 4 topics that, you can choose from those 4 topics what it is that you want to tackle in your program. And if that's bearing out across all the programs, then those 4 topics could also be what we tackle in the administrator LEA. And this is where you start to have some overlap and some connection between these 2 projects, that they're not completely separate things. So
if we're looking at the same 4 topics from a program perspective and from a classroom perspective.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I kind of like that as well. It's because a lot of things that could make outcomes better are administrative decisions, not instructional decisions.
Right.
Just intensity, for example. The teacher doesn't decide whether the class meets 20 hours a week or 4 hours a week.
Okay, so how would we pick those 4 areas?
I would say we'd have to sit on that for a day or 2.
Yeah.
To kind of, figure that out. We would, of course, want to look at data, but there are other things we'd want to consider.
Yeah, I think our team could work with John and Lori to kind of figure out how we would identify those.
Yeah.
Or Lori and John can just tell us.
Okay.
No dictators. No dictators.
No, that's the advantage of having the handles of the sword.
So we've kind of gone around a lot of different things, and time we're getting right up on an hour. I can go a little longer, but I want to check in with the AIR team. Do you want to process a little bit and kind of lay some stuff out and come back together? What would you like our next step to be?
Thinking. Well,
I kind of like to see like an outline or a revised kind of sketch of everything that we've talked about, and of course, leaving blank areas for topics to be covered. But I think that would be real helpful because we've talked about a lot of different stuff.
Okay, how about if we do work on a revised outline with no topics in it?
Well,
I'll try to do that.
You can just, focus
yeah. I can. I understand what you mean. Like, what are we going to really? How are we going to focus this, and what's going to be the flow of it, regardless of what the topic is, in a way. And then then you guys think about what you want the focus to be, or it can be 3 or 4 or whatever. And I think we need to meet again and then decide how is that going to really work.
Okay.
Do we have a next call scheduled yet, Beth? I don't think we did we?
No, we do not. We do not. I was trying to just come up with
Now comes the hard part, trying to get schedules.
Yeah.
But are we safe in assuming we can extend the deadline for this? I mean, the closing date?
Yeah.
Or is that something that would be okay with AIR? I don't know if you guys.
We're hoping that we're going to extend the deadline to December 31st, because if it's May 31st, we're in trouble.
Right.
Yeah. No, and in speaking with finance, it's doable. It's just a little bit of work on their part because of the overlap of the program years. But they said it was possible, so that's what I wanted to hear.
Okay. But it does give us a little more breathing time to develop something
Yeah, and John,
Good.
I sent you some tentative dates that we settled on our last call, looking at some first webinar in May, face-to-face, first face-to-face in June, and then second, assuming that we can get pushed back, then the second face-to-face in October.
Okay. And you're telling me this because what am I supposed to?
Well, you were asking if we were we're planning on moving forward, planning as if we were going to get extended.
Okay. All right. Good. Okay. Oh, I understand why you're saying that now. Okay.
Oh, did Lori find out if we could use the funds past September?
That's what we're working on.
That's what I was just saying. It's going to take a little bit of working on our finance end because of the program overlap years, but it's doable, so that's all I really care about.
Sounds great. Okay, so should we look at next week?
Well, we're at Taylor all week next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to have our team have an outline by February 12th. So it's going to be a completely different outline than what we were imagining. And it's going to be not as detailed because we aren't going to have all the details, but we could shoot for sometime that following week.
Okay.
Beth, could we meet during a lunch hour, maybe on Thursday or Friday? Maybe Thursday.
Well, I'm presenting on Thursday, and I really'd rather not. I'd rather be concentrating on my presentation.
Okay.
Which I never should have put in a proposal for this one, but oh well.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I've got where did January go?
John,
I have all these.
John.
What was I
I'm
thinking?
out on the 12th, but other than that.
The 14th and 15th. Well, Sudi, the 14th doesn't look so good for you. The 14th in the afternoon or the 15th look good for us.
Maybe the 15th, because the 14th we have the call, the ATX, ATB, and then the PD course.
Yeah, I have that on my schedule too.
We also have our biweekly phone call.
Marion, there's a tentative SLP that could be on the 14th or 15th.
You're kidding.
No.
Well, right now there's nothing on the 15th. So if we have to step out for this call, I think that would be okay.
I vote snatch the 15th.
Yeah, 15th looks good.
Okay, but not at, let's see, what time is that one? Not at 10, not from 11 to 12, but.
Okay, February 15th.
Like 1 o'clock maybe?
1 o'clock would be okay for me. Mm-hmm.
Does that work for our Pacific Coast and our East Coast?
Yes, that's 11. Jacques, is that okay for you? 11 on the 15th?
Yes, that's fine.
So do we want Amy? So this is one of the questions I have that's kind of a logistical question on how we're moving forward with planning. You know, it made good sense to me to separate the administrator and the instructor while we were doing this kind of intense brainstorming kind of piece. Do we want to have everybody come and say 1 hour? I mean, how do you want to do it? Because I know my team is all together. Your team is split. So how do you want to approach?
Let me just look at her calendar for a second. Oh, she has nothing on the 15th either. Let's have everybody.
Okay. And we could always, moving forward, like send, the first 45 minutes on one, and if Amy needs to leave, she can leave, and then we can bring Judy in for the second half of that one,
Okay. Can we make this an hour and a half?
1.5 hours? Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I actually set aside 2 for this one, but
oh, you did?
Yeah, just because I wasn't sure what it was going to take, and it took us an hour and a half for sure. So,
For
Yeah,
sure.
okay.
and the next one will be just as long, easily. We'll have topics by then, and you guys will have an outline, so
Yeah.
that'll be a good session.
You want me to go ahead and set aside 2?
I think an hour and a half we should be able to
Yeah,
do
I
it.
think hour and a
Okay.
half is good.
Okay.
Lori can't sit still that long.
Especially when it had a conference call right before this.
Yeah.
And one before that as well.
Okay, I see a note that Robin's on vacation, but she can get the notes. Okay. And Robin,
Well, we
should
can record it.
Yeah, I went ahead and recorded this one. I didn't record the one on the 22nd, but I did record this one. I'll record
I like
it, Robin.
that because I was listening to our first one this morning, just to because we've gone around several ideas, and I wanted to be refreshed, so I liked it.
Okay, so I'll plan on continuing to record them, so anytime we have a team member that has to miss. And Robin, before you leave, they should have an outline to us, so maybe you and I can talk and get some feedback before you have to leave.
When are you leaving,
can do
Robin?
It on your vacation.
I'm going to Memphis. We're going to actually do a driving vacation, so I might be able to call in if we're still in the car. We're just going to do somewhere we've never been before, just like just. So we're going to try that. Go see some fun places.
When are you leaving that I should?
I was going to say that, but I thought, oh, that's a little dorky. But
I love that tour. I went to see it a few years ago. It was really great.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, and we're going to stay at the Peabody. I want to see the ducks. So.
Oh, the ducks are fun.
Okay. So I thought that would be fun. But if I'm in the car, I'll try to call in. But thanks for giving me the option of being able to listen to it afterwards. And Beth, certainly we can get together once the outline is given to us. Okay.
Sounds good.
Mhm.
And then for my team, and I guess John and Lori, we need to start thinking about how we're advertising this and who we're advertising it to. And so maybe we can have like a separate short meeting. Maybe we can even get together next week while we're all together on that.
Okay.
Oh, we'll have to call you, Lori, because you're going to be in Austin. Okay, that's all I had. Marion?
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Everyone.
Beth, can we talk for a minute?
I'm here.
Okay. Tiffany's asking me if she can add that session on the 2 sessions on Saturday, and so I just wanted to find out if you had seen my email that I sent last night.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've been in meetings since I walked in the door.
I know.
My only concern, see, this is what happened.
You want to call me?
Yeah, let me just call you,
call
okay?
me. Thank you.
Hey, can I have a 5-minute break?
Sure.
Please?
Yeah,
Okay.
or you want me to call you, or you want to call me?
I'll call you.
You call me. Okay, thank you, Beth.
Okay.
So Beth, you don't need to talk to us anymore, right?
No, I think we're good. Yeah.
Okay. Are you okay? Are you happy with the way it went?
Yeah, I think we're still not quite 100% on the same page, but I think we're getting there.
Because we need to, or is John and Lori going to decide on the topic and then get back with us? Or are we all going to talk about it together on topics?
Well, I thought they're probably going to want to, but I was actually kind of brainstorming on my own some topics just because I think it'd be easier for them.
Mhm.
I mean, because the topics aren't the topics that have anything to do really with the training. It's their topics that the individuals will choose their project underneath, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, the ones that immediately came to mind were retention, technology integration, data-driven decision-making. I think we could brainstorm some topics.
Yeah, don't forget project-based learning. Because with that aspect, if they do it right, they can incorporate a lot of different things into it, whether it be workforce, whether it be contextualizing, all those different aspects can go into that one if they do it right.
But that would really only work for the instruction side. It wouldn't work for the administrator side.
Oh, do they have to be?
Well, see, that's one of the things I'm trying to do is to tie these two together. They feel like they're getting so separate that I feel like I want there to be some kind of connection between these two projects. But maybe I'm just forcing something that shouldn't be there. I don't know.
No, I think you could do that. I like that direction. But we just need to keep in mind it is leadership, and need to circle back around to that and how the leadership's going to play into this, because I think that was one of John's concerns.
Yeah, I totally. And one of my concerns with the proposal was that it looked just like the standards training. But this was the call where we hashed that out. So.
Okay. Well, everybody needs to kind of get a little bit of thinking time. And then, yeah.
Okay.
So, all right.
All right. I'll call you in a minute.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.